A blinding flash rips through the dark woods as someone pants for breath. Turns out it is two dark-skinned elf girls sprinting for their lives through the trees. This older sister glances back with concern as the younger one calls out to her. While she shouts the younger girl's name, Melfi, who looks absolutely terrified. A third, more serious-looking elf appears, shushing them to keep them quiet and hidden. Because in the distance their home, some kind of grand temple, is completely engulfed in flames. Melfi just collapses right there in the dirt, totally overwhelmed by the sight. She can only whisper in horror that everything, absolutely everything, is burning down. Her older sister, trying to hold it together, desperately urges Melfi to get back on her feet. This was a direct order from their god. She reminds her they were told to escape. Their only mission now is to survive because their god's word is absolute. As if to punctuate the point, the main tower of the temple finally crumbles into ash. Then we get a hard cut to a modern-day apartment building. Talk about tonal whiplash. Inside, some random dude is just waking up with a massive yawn, looking bored with life. He shuffles down the hallway, scratching his head, clearly not in a hurry to do anything. This guy is the living embodiment of "I need more coffee and less existence." His biggest problem seems to be the mountain of cardboard boxes taking over his apartment. Slipping on some sandals, he decides to venture outside to check for another delivery. He stands by his front door, wondering what exciting new purchase has arrived today. Popping open the delivery locker, he is just hoping it is the barley tea he ordered, a real high roller. And there it is, his precious barley tea, the absolute peak of his life's ambition. He hauls his new treasures inside, a real Tamazum box in hand. What a workout. We learn he has been a shut-in for 8 long years, living in the house his grandma left him. Turns out he is a secret stock market genius, having turned her inheritance into a massive fortune. Thanks to a giant delivery locker and online shopping, he has achieved zero human contact. He sits at his table, giving a silent prayer of thanks to the internet for his hermit kingdom. But as he gets ready for tea, the whole table starts shaking for no reason. Our boy looks down, suddenly very concerned about this unscheduled earthquake. Standing up, he tries to recall the last time he actually spoke to another person. This answer finally hits him. It was the gas inspector, a solid 3 months ago. Feeling a bit stuffy, he decides to do something truly radical and air the place out. With a mighty heave, he slides open the glass door to greet the great outdoors. His face remains deadpan, but a single bead of sweat betrays his total lack of chill. Then his brain finally processes what he is seeing, and his expression just breaks, because a giant, slimy, googly-eyed frog creature is plastered against his window. He can only stammer in disbelief as the frog seems to be asking him a question. This thing is looking for a farm, which is a pretty weird thing to find in a city. And that is when he realizes his apartment is not in the city anymore. It is in a jungle. In a total daze, he stumbles through his front door to get a better look at his new real estate. His bare feet land not on concrete, but on cold, unfamiliar dirt and stone. Peeking outside, our boy looks like he is about to have a full system meltdown, his face completely distorting as he lets out a silent, soul-shattering scream. Because yeah, his entire house is now prime real estate in the middle of nowhere. Back inside, he tries to regain his composure, arms crossed like a disappointed dad. But the confusion is just too real. What the hell is even happening right now? He sits at his table, desperately trying to process the impossible situation he is in, when suddenly a loud clank from the front door snaps him out of his spiral, and he whips his head around, wondering what fresh hell this could possibly be. Leaping to his feet, he bolts towards the entrance to investigate the noise. His mind racing as he sprints, trying to place that strangely familiar sound. It finally clicks, that was the unmistakable sound of his delivery locker opening, so he cautiously slides open the front door, bracing for another monster or something. What he finds, however, just leaves him scratching his head in total disbelief, because a brand new Tamazum package is sitting there, delivered fresh to his jungle paradise. His brain short-circuits trying to connect the dots, jungle outside, deliveries inside. Then a sudden spark of recognition flashes across his face. As he clenches his fists, remembering all the manga he has ever read, all the classic tropes flood his mind. Is this an actual, honest-to-God Isekai situation? He wonders if he did not just get transported, but his entire house came with him. Seriously considering the popular Isekai genre as a plausible explanation for his predicament. He immediately starts a systematic check of his utilities, beginning with a light switch. And first on the checklist is electricity, which miraculously is still working just fine. This water also runs without a single issue, adding to the growing mystery. And even the gas stove fires right up, so at least his tea supply is secure. But the real test of modern civilization is, of course, his internet connection, which connects to 4G perfectly, streaming videos in his brand new jungle home. This logical impossibility just leaves him completely baffled. How is any of this working? Our boy tries to rationalize that if online shopping works, who cares about the jungle? A nervous sweat, however, suggests he is not as chill as he is pretending to be. His genius plan is to just go to sleep and hope this all turns out to be a weird dream. Just as he is drifting off, a loud clatter from the entryway echoes through the house, jolting him from his sleep, looking like a zombie who just stubbed his toe. Sitting bolt upright in bed, he tries to place that sudden, unwelcome noise, a tired suspicion crossing his face because that definitely was not the house settling. Then a far more terrifying thought hits him, making his blood run completely cold. wondering if it is actually a burglar somehow finding him out in the middle of nowhere. That is when he remembers he forgot to lock the front door, a rookie mistake. So he cautiously peeks out of his bedroom, ready for a jungle home invasion. Grabbing the nearest weapon, a lint roller, to defend his hermit kingdom. With a look of pure terror, he grips his duster and prepares for the worst. With his mighty lint roller in hand, he slams the door open to face his doom, letting out a ferocious roar, ready to lint roll this burglar into oblivion. Except the burglar is a dark-skinned elf girl looking up at him from the floor. And his brain just blue screens at the sight, causing him to drop his legendary weapon. This sweat starts pouring as his hermit brain struggles to compute actual girl in house. She is just as baffled, probably wondering what kind of weirdo attacks with cleaning supplies. And so much for his grand home defense plan as his weapon of choice hits the dirt. Before he can say anything, the conscious elf girl just faceplants onto the floor. And his brain finally connects the dots: pointy ears, dark skin, holy crap, are these dark elves? This first girl Melfi comes to, now armed with his lint roller and wondering if this is really another world. He then notices the other girl is completely unconscious and looks seriously hurt. But as Melfi starts crying, our boy's priorities immediately shift. Wow, she is actually super cute. This sudden realization sends him into a full-blown panic. He is not equipped for this. Stuttering, he cautiously asks if she can understand what he is even saying. And to his absolute shock, she whispers, yes, Japanese is apparently a universal language. Our boy tries to play it cool, but internally he is screaming about Isekai convenience tropes. Melfi just looks up at him, clearly not sure if he is a threat or just a weirdo. He decides to deal with the injured one first, asking for help to move her somewhere more comfortable. With that settled, they carry the unconscious elf deeper into his hermit sanctuary, getting the older sister settled on a pillow as Melfi sits watchfully beside her. Our boy, looking completely done with this Isekai nonsense, goes to find some supplies, and Melfi watches him go, still on high alert in this strange new place. He returns with a first aid kit, admitting it is just basic bandages and ointment, handing over the box so she can take the lead on fantasy world first aid. She thanks him profusely, bowing so low she almost headbutts her unconscious sister. While Melfi insists her sister is fine, our boy's face says, I highly doubt that. She then frantically explains her sister's magic is recovering, so no worries, and the word magic just makes his brain sweat because of course it is magic. Melfi glances over, thinking this is definitely a full-blown fantasy world now. While the kid just sits there, marinating in a cold sweat under her constant, curious stares. Finally, she breaks the awkward silence to ask him a very, very important question, asking if he is the priest of this shrine, you know, the one filled with Tamazim boxes. His only response is a brilliant, eloquent huh. He starts putting the pieces together: dark elves, evil god, hero, the whole Isekai starter pack. Looking at Melfi, he thinks she seems way too nice to be serving some evil deity. She explains they followed their god's faint aura into the forest of calamity. Her sister got injured protecting her from all the monsters lurking in the woods, which makes our boy realize his new backyard is apparently a 5-star death trap. Melfi says they saw his shrine as a last resort, calling it a rundown shack, and the sheer offense on his face is priceless because that is his asterisk grandma's house asterisk. She apologizes for the shack comment with a bow so deep it breaks the laws of physics. Because this place is apparently radiating the divine energy of their evil god. And our boy realizes their magic is regenerating thanks to his divine presence. This whole situation leaves them in a very tense, very awkward silence. Though Melfi's clearly flustered by his complete lack of a god complex, he just sweats bullets trying to figure out what the hell to even say to that. And just then the unconscious sister finally decides to rejoin the land of the living. Looking surprisingly okay for someone who was on death's door, she sits right up, asking Melfi where in the world they have ended up now. Melfi tearfully explains they found their god's holy shrine right here in the forest. And hearing God's shrine, our boy gets the smuggest look imaginable. He is a deity now apparently, so he puffs out his chest and introduces himself as the great god, Katakura Satoshi. This elves just stare back, completely baffled by his very, very human-sounding name. But Katakura seems to echo with some strange significance for them, which sends the older sister into a panic, demanding to know if that is really his name. Satoshi, already over it, just confirms that yes, that is in fact what he just said. Her reaction is pure unadulterated shock, like he just revealed a world-ending secret, so he asks if she might know the name Katakurakimi instead. That is his grandma's name, written on her memorial box. How could she possibly know it? And suddenly both elves are sweating, realizing this is not just some random Isekai house. This older sister, Serena, starts grilling Melfi, trying to make sense of this new information, and they are both sweating absolute buckets as she confirms the word grandma. A tense silence falls as they both try to process this absolutely insane revelation, before they both whip around and perform a perfectly synchronized, super dramatic bow to Satoshi. Serena apologizes profusely for their rudeness, not realizing they were in the presence of the evil god's kin, while our boy's brain meanwhile has officially left the building. She explains their evil god was actually a human who descended from another world, looking surprisingly angelic, but then some other evil god apparently jumped her and stole all her power, a story Satoshi is not enjoying. This kid is just trying to process the phrase, my grandma, the evil god, and it is not going well. Melfi confirms it with absolute certainty. The divine energy in this shack is 100% his grandma's. So Satoshi just offers a strained, sweaty smile because what else are you supposed to do? And now they are back to bowing, trapping him in a prison of extreme, floor-level reverence. So stuck in the middle, he finally asks what it is they actually want from him. Serena introduces herself and Melfi, officially pledging their eternal loyalty to him as their new master. And Satoshi's brain just completely short-circuits, unable to form a single coherent word. So yeah, long story short, they are living with him now, a fact he is processing by snapping a pencil in half. He figured he'd help them out, so he gave them a laptop to learn about modern Japan, and they picked it up instantly. But the result is they now scold him for being a lazy slob, the demon of cleaning. Melfi has fully evolved into a nagging mom, complete with a frilly apron telling him to get his butt out of bed. And his divine new life now involves being chased by an angry elf with a shovel for not doing his chores. Melfi starts her daily lecture, pointing out that their supposed god is a total slob. And Serena chimes in that if he is going to be lazy, he has no right to complain. She punctuates this with a side-eye so sharp it could cut glass, right before grabbing her new best friend, a bottle of sake literally labeled unemployed. Yep, Serena has fully embraced the freeloader life, complete with a custom dark elf in tears shirt. Melfi tries to call her out on the drinking, but they both just agree it is all Satoshi's fault. Our boy just yawns, accepting this is now his life with two freeloading elf sisters. This is the so-called slow life of a hermit in another world, pure unadulterated chaos. Satoshi, meanwhile, has achieved a new level of apathy, just completely checked out from reality. The sisters get into another argument as Serena clutches her precious bottle for dear life, and she proudly declares that sweet, sweet alcohol is her one true lover now. Melfi hits her with the most soul-crushing stare, asking if she is even a proper member of society. Internally, Satoshi is screaming that you cannot lecture a dark elf on corporate responsibility. He starts sweating, remembering a time when they were actually well-behaved. Because just 2 months ago, they were these timid, respectful servants kneeling before him. Now his face is a perfect portrait of regret for ever opening his front door. He tries to lay down the law, literally drawing a line on the floor to set some boundaries. But they just look back at him with these adorable, blushing faces, melting his resolve instantly. A cold dread washes over him as he realizes this situation is completely out of his control, so he offers to make them food and they immediately cower like he is about to execute them. Melfi panics, telling him to wait because there is no way he can cook anything complex. But Satoshi just waves it off, insisting he cannot have his new followers doing all the work. He heads to his kitchen, a glorious monument to minimalist hermit living. Pulling out the finest cuisine he owns, instant rice and instant miso soup. Our boy stands proudly over his survival rations, the pinnacle of a balanced diet. This microwave is, of course, the centerpiece of this whole culinary operation. But then he finds eggs, deciding to get fancy and whip up a rolled omelet. His secret seasoning is just salt, because gourmet cooking is for people with social lives. With the pan sizzling, he prepares to unleash his one and only cooking move. And the sheer focus on his face suggests he is performing open-heart surgery, not making breakfast. His concentration is immediately broken by the elves peeking around the door like curious cats, and Serena nervously asks if there is anything at all they can do to assist their master. Satoshi just tells them to go sit down because their intense staring is not helping. This egg mixture hits the pan and the grand culinary spectacle officially begins, making Melfi gasp in awe, wondering if their great god can actually cook. He is quick to clarify it is not real cooking, just instant stuff that is easy to make, which only confuses them more since instant is not a concept in their world. But damn, he is actually rolling that omelet with some serious practice skill. So the sisters sit patiently at the table, waiting for their divine meal to be served. As the aroma fills the room, Melfi's ears twitch. Holy crap, it actually smells amazing. This microwave dings and Satoshi looks as thrilled as a man on his way to a tax audit. He pulls out the microwaved rice, the height of bachelor pad haute cuisine, and with 2 perfect bowls ready, the grand feast is almost assembled. Smugly, he explains all that is left is adding hot water to the instant miso soup. And voila, a perfectly balanced meal is served, a masterpiece of convenient store cooking. This elves just stare, their minds absolutely blown by this incredible display of microwaving. Satoshi sits down, trying his best to look like a divine being and not a guy who just nuked his dinner. Melfi is practically sparkling, her eyes wide with a level of excitement usually reserved for miracles, while Serena tries to play it cool, telling her sister to stop acting so shamelessly hungry. Our boy tells them to dig in, but then asks if they even know how to use chopsticks. Serena explains that their god's followers are all trained to eat with them, even for picking up beans. This new fantasy detail just makes Satoshi sweat, wondering what other weird stuff his grandma taught them. Before eating, they both put their hands together in a prayer, showing some actual reverence for once. Melfi just stares at her bowl, completely mesmerized by the simple meal before her, then points to the bowl, asking their god what these mysterious white grains are. Satoshi gives her the most deadpan look imaginable, answering that it is just rice. Hearing this, both elves just freeze, looking at each other in total disbelief, and immediately crowd him, getting way too close as they shout the word rice in his face. Pointing at the bowl, they ask if this is the legendary akom they have only heard stories about. And Satoshi just sweats, completely baffled by why they are having a religious experience over a bowl of carbs. Satoshi just watches, completely bewildered, as Melfi starts crying over the rice. And Serena explains their god his grandma was always talking about this stuff, apparently weeping because she just wanted to eat white akum one more time. Melfi asks if rice just does not exist in their world, holding the bowl like a holy grail. And she confirms this is the first time she has ever laid eyes on the legendary grain. Our boy, looking so done with this drama, just tells them to stop staring and eat it already. So Melfi nervously lifts a small clump with her chopsticks, ready for a life-changing experience, bringing the sacred food closer with the reverence of a bomb disposal expert. And she finally takes the bite, the fate of her taste buds hanging in the balance. She chews slowly, thoughtfully, processing this brand new, divine flavor profile. Followed by a gulp so dramatic you'd think she just swallowed the secrets of the universe. Before her eyes open, a single tear of pure, unadulterated joy rolling down her cheek. Melfi absolutely lights up, shouting that it is sweet and unbelievably delicious, which leaves Satoshi completely stumped. How in the world is plain rice sweet? He figures their world must be seriously lacking in anything with sugar. Which means if plain rice gets this reaction, he is starting to get some very dangerous ideas. Melfi is already imagining what would happen if he served them something like cake, while Serena, ever the stoic, finally takes her own first cautious bite. Satoshi just watches on, his expression a perfect blend of pity and exhaustion. After a moment of chewing, Serena agrees. Now she finally understands why their god missed it so much. Satoshi just watches, thinking her reaction is surprisingly tame after the whole rice meltdown. But then Melfi points to the rolled omelet, asking what this mysterious yellow food is. Serena picks up a piece, amazed that she has never seen anything with such a beautiful shape, explaining that the lizard eggs from their world are white, making this a total novelty. She takes a cautious bite, bracing herself for another life-altering flavor experience. And yep, her face absolutely lights up as she declares it is unbelievably delicious. Not to be outdone, Melfi holds up her bowl, asking what this strange brown soup is, and Satoshi explains it is just miso soup, another cornerstone of his convenience store diet. This revelation sends Melfi into yet another shock, shouting this is miso soup. Serena adds that their god, his grandma, always talked about wanting to drink this soybean soup again. These two sisters share a deeply emotional look, connecting over fermented bean paste, before they both just burst into tears again, completely overwhelmed by the meal. Our boy, meanwhile, sips his own soup, calmly thinking it tastes like heaven, a truly divine flavor. His new followers just stare at their bowls, still trying to process this culinary miracle. And Serena goes back to eating, savoring every bite with a look of pure contentment. Melfi, on the other hand, has completely given up on etiquette and is just stuffing her face, both of them just lost in the simple pleasure of a warm, home-cooked meal. Satoshi just keeps chewing, his face a perfect mask of I am so done with everything. Melfi happily remarks that it has been years since she's gotten to eat with someone else. So Satoshi quietly pours them all some tea, a small gesture in this chaotic new life. Melfi and Serena look completely stunned when Satoshi just casually offers them some tea, which gets him curious, so he asks what kind of food they are used to eating back home. Melfi explains their cuisine is pretty basic, mostly just bread and various stews, and Serena adds that the ingredients his grandma was always searching for were just cheap substitutes. They mention a dish called rakasudo, and Satoshi has absolutely no idea what they are talking about. Until Melfi clarifies it is a giant, building-sized locust that she points to like it is totally normal. Our boy is visibly grossed out, realizing they are talking about eating simmered locusts. Satoshi's still struggling to accept this is all real, especially their demand to meet the evil god. And the sisters just stare at him with this heavy, somber look, waiting for his decision. He tries to be gentle, telling them he gets they are in a bind and can stay as long as they need. Which makes their faces immediately light up, declaring it is an honor to be under his grandma's care. Satoshi just takes a long sip of tea, trying to process the absolute mess he is in now. But his calm is shattered when they declare they will help him get revenge on the hero. This sheer absurdity of it all hits him and he just breaks down laughing and crying at the same time. A reaction that just confuses the hell out of the sisters, who tell him to stop talking like that. His laughter stops cold and he just tells them the hard truth, his grandma died a long time ago. This revelation absolutely shatters them, leaving them speechless and on the verge of tears. A wave of panic hits him. Is he the bad guy here for just wanting to protect his quiet life? He shakes his head, trying to get his priorities straight and move past the awkwardness. When his eyes land on their clothes, realizing they are absolutely filthy, a perfect distraction. His eyes widen in a cold sweat as another, far more pressing issue suddenly dawns on him, because a closer look reveals their clothes are absolutely, horrifyingly filthy. So he points decisively, declaring that before anything else they are taking a bath. His sisters just look at each other, completely lost by this sudden demand for cleanliness. Immediately apologizing as Melfi offers to heat the water with her fire magic, because of course she does. But Satoshi quickly holds up a hand, telling them to just relax, he has got it covered, leading them to the bathroom, a sacred temple of modern hygiene and laundry baskets. Both elves just stare back, looking deeply skeptical of this strange tiled room, and then he unveils the ultimate magical artifact, a digital water heater control panel. He leans in to explain the controls, getting way too close as Melfi inspects the strange runes. And with a single, anticlimactic press of a button, the ritual begins. causing hot water to pour from the faucet like some kind of plumbing miracle, which they immediately interpret as high-level magic combining fire and water elements. Satoshi just demonstrates the faucet handle, trying to explain this is just basic mechanics, before showing them the shower head, another piece of bafflingly advanced technology. He then has to ask if they even know what soap is, getting a confused stare in return. With the tub filling, he tells them to get in when the water stops making noise, pointing to the laundry basket for them to dump their tattered, travel-worn clothes. He slides the door shut, his expression screaming that he needs a vacation from his vacation, only to open his closet and realize all he has to offer them are his own baggy sweats. Satoshi's brain finally catches up, realizing he is now responsible for clothing two elves, and the first hurdle hits him. What in the world is he supposed to do about underwear? He has zero clue about sizes, colors, or patterns, a problem every guy has faced. His mind immediately goes to the least helpful place, imagining them in lingerie he cannot possibly buy. Shaking his head, he tries to purge the unhelpful thoughts and focus on the actual problem. Kneeling before his closet, he laments not having a single female friend to call for help. After a moment of deep, profound thought, he comes up with absolutely nothing useful. His only option for now is a pair of his own shorts, the height of elven fashion, so he just grabs a pile of his own loungewear, hoping for the absolute best. Just then, the digital panel beeps, announcing the bath is ready, interrupting his fashion crisis. He slides the door open, calling out that the water's ready for them, then listens closely, hearing splashing and realizing they are actually in there, which is progress. With an armful of clothes, he hesitates, knowing walking in now is a great way to get murdered. His hand trembles on the doorknob as he tells himself he is not a creep, he is just delivering laundry. Putting on his best, totally not weird smile, he opens the door to ask about the water. And of course, he walks right in on both of them mid-bath, looking right back at him. Our boy freezes, a pair of his own shorts comically draped over his head from his panic toss. Serena lets out a sharp gasp, completely caught off guard by their god's sudden appearance. Melfi is just as shocked, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and embarrassment, and their combined shriek of pure, unadulterated panic echoes, shaking the entire house. Satoshi frantically tries to explain he was just bringing clothes, his head still tangled in shorts. And then it hits him, he completely forgot to teach them how to lock the bathroom door. Melfi, meanwhile, is just confused by the soap, asking what this weird, slippery rock is for. So Serena's immediate, totally rational response is to hurl it at his head like a holy hand grenade. He learns a valuable lesson: a bar of soap, when thrown by an elf, is a lethal weapon. Our boy's life flashes before his eyes, about to be taken out by personal hygiene products. A little later, both sisters are dressed in his sweats, bowing in the most extreme apology imaginable. Serena timidly asks if he is okay, after she tried to give him a concussion. With a fresh lump on his head, Satoshi just looks like he has aged about 10 years and 10 seconds. He stands over them, hands on his hips, demanding to know what that was all about. Serena explains their evil god was apparently a peeping Tom, so they are a little jumpy. They reference some ancient tradition, an apology pose so profound it cannot be refused. Satoshi just asks what kind of ultimate secret technique this is supposed to be, and Melfi declares with utter seriousness that this is the ultimate form of apology. This dojizer, a bow so powerful it literally shatters planets in the background. Our boy's face, however, remains a perfect mask of "I am not impressed." He just stands there while they continue their dramatic floor-bowing routine, before deadpanning that it is just a normal bow, nothing special about it. This news absolutely shatters them. How could the legendary dojizer possibly fail? Satoshi just rubs his head, thinking their over-the-top theatrics are starting to get really annoying. Melfi declares that a simple bow is not nearly enough to earn his forgiveness. So she pulls out a dagger, offering to commit ritual suicide, the only logical next step. Satoshi's brain just short-circuits, realizing his grandma's lessons did not cover this particular situation. He quickly tells them to just calm down, trying to stop this before it gets even weirder. And with a strained laugh, he insists he is not even mad, just deeply, deeply confused. Taking the blame, he says it is his fault for not explaining door locks, calling the whole thing a wash. Their response is a soul-crushing, silent stare of pure judgment. They are not amused. Our boy just coughs awkwardly, his attempt to lighten the mood crashing and burning spectacularly. Changing the subject, he leads them to an empty room, telling them they can stay here, showing them to a traditional room with futons and cardboard boxes, the height of luxury. Both elves just stare, completely bewildered by the Spartan accommodations. Serena timidly asks if he is absolutely sure they can impose like this, and Satoshi just gives a simple yeah, trying to move on from the whole dagger incident. He points out the futons in the corner, explaining that is where they will be sleeping, admitting that besides the closet, there is not really any other furniture in here. Anything they need, he says, he will just order for them without any trouble. Melfi immediately refuses, insisting they cannot possibly be any more of a burden. But Satoshi just smiles, casually mentioning he has enough money to last a lifetime anyway. His sisters just look up, still processing his completely nonchalant generosity, while our boy sweats, wondering why they still look so depressed after his offer. Melfi gets a serious look, deciding they need a plan to repay his kindness. So Satoshi, ever the problem solver, suggests they can earn their keep with some light chores. He gestures to a mountain of delivery boxes, pointing out the house is an absolute disaster zone, All they have to do, he says, is help out with whatever they are capable of, no pressure. Serena's eyes go wide, absolutely thrilled by the prospect of cleaning. With fists clenched, they both accept the mission with the intensity of soldiers heading into war. Our boy immediately starts sweating, realizing he may have unleashed something he cannot control. The sisters just look confused, wondering why he is suddenly so hesitant about their enthusiasm. And then they are all over him in a group hug, forcing him to teach a crash course in personal space. After that awkwardness, he is just trying to get them to stop apologizing so frantically. They are back to bowing on the floor while he realizes the first real task is getting them actual clothes. He sighs, knowing his baggy sweats cannot be their permanent wardrobe. That is just cruel. Suddenly, a brilliant Isekai trope-fueled idea pops into his head. He asks if they happen to have, a magical inventory space with their stuff in it. Their faces just drop, explaining they barely escaped with their lives and have nothing. Feeling like a total heel, Satoshi quickly apologizes for his thoughtless question. His gaze then falls back on the pile of boxes, sparking a much more modern solution. This kid strokes his chin, realizing the answer to his problems is online shopping. He even considers just teaching them how to use his phone to order for themselves. But then reality hits, they probably do not even know how to get past the lock screen. Our boy is sweating bullets, completely overwhelmed by this new domestic crisis. So he just decides to ask them straight up if they know their own clothing sizes. And they just stare back blankly, repeating the word sizes like it is a foreign concept, which it is. Serena explains they just kinda picked whatever fit, having no clue about standardized measurements. While Melfi chimes in about the breast bands their evil god provided, a fashion lineup from the Dark Ages. Satoshi's face just says it all, this is going to be way harder than he thought. So he pulls out his phone, trying to research medieval-sounding undergarments and women's sizing charts. His search immediately brings up a lingerie ad, introducing him to the horrifying algebra of cup sizes. And he just stares, his brain short-circuiting from information he was never meant to know. But then a new plan forms as he pulls out the ultimate weapon, a simple measuring tape. He claps his hands together, loudly telling them to be quiet for a moment, announcing that they are going to measure each other to get the right sizes. The sisters kneel obediently, ready to follow whatever their new, very flustered god commands. But first, he tells them to look at his phone for a quick tutorial in modern anatomy. He shows them a diagram with the 4 key measurement points: bust, underbust, waist, and hips, then presents the measuring tape, the sacred tool for this very awkward ritual. He has to ask the most basic question imaginable: can they even read the numbers on it? Serena confirms they can, explaining the numbers are automatically translating into their language, which she naturally assumes is just another one of his divine, all-powerful abilities. And Satoshi starts sweating again, realizing his god powers are the only reason they can even talk. The sisters get the basic idea, just wrap the tape around to get the numbers. And Satoshi asks if it is too complicated, trying to sound way more casual than he feels. He then announces he is stepping out to give them some privacy, a rare moment of social awareness. Our boy tells them to just call him when they are done with the whole ordeal. And as the door slides shut, the two elves share a look of grim determination. Serena declares they cannot keep their lord waiting and tells Melfi it is time to begin. Melfi just gives a solemn nod, ready to perform this sacred duty of measurements. So naturally they start stripping down completely for maximum accuracy, obviously. His shirts come flying off because you cannot have fabric getting in the way of science. His baggy sweatpants are the next to go, leaving absolutely nothing to the imagination. And now they are both standing there, ready for the world's most awkward tailor session. There is a moment of tense, professional silence between them before the measuring begins. They stand facing each other on the mat, the tension palpable from head to toe. With the clothes officially gone, they are ready to tackle this very strange, very important task. So Serena takes charge, announcing she will measure Melfi first with the sacred tape measure. Melfi just nods again, completely trusting her sister's lead in this bizarre modern ritual. And she starts by wrapping the tape around her sister's back for the underbust measurement. Melfi flinches as the tape tightens, clearly not used to this whole process. But then it is time for the bust, and Melfi looks a little flustered by the situation. Serena just looks back, asking what the problem is. They have a job to do after all. Melfi immediately complains that the whole thing is ticklish, clearly not enjoying the process. But Serena tells her to suck it up. This is a direct order from their glorious lord. Which does not exactly fill Melfi with confidence as she continues to hesitate. And then Serena gets confused, trying to figure out the correct placement for the tape. So she just yanks it as tight as humanly possible, for maximum accuracy, causing Melfi to let out a little yelp as the tape is stretched to its breaking point. And her sister just asks if it is crooked, showing a real commitment to the craft. Before pointing out that Melfi's face is bright red, who insists it is absolutely nothing. With that part done, Serena announces it is time to move on to the hip measurement. So Melfi just gulps, preparing for the next stage of this deeply personal audit, while her sister holds the sacred measuring tool with the solemnity of a high priestess, wrapping the tape around Melfi's hips with intense, professional focus. And Serena just stares for a moment, silently judging the final number, which makes Melfi sweat bullets, looking like she is about to spontaneously combust from embarrassment, until she finally snaps, yelling at her sister to stop staring because she is self-conscious. So Serena just holds up the tape, calmly declaring that it is time to switch places. Now it is Melfi's turn to take the measurements, starting with her sister's bust, and she stares with a look of pure, unadulterated concentration, or maybe it is payback. Before blurting out that Serena's chest is huge, calling it totally unfair. While Satoshi, sitting just outside, overhears them arguing about something being in the way. Our boy's just outside minding his own business, definitely not thinking about their measurements at all. When the door cracks open to reveal Serena's face of pure, unadulterated horror, she immediately calls him out for lurking, and he just sputters that he was lost in thought, which is not helping his case. Now fully dressed, the two sisters stand there looking at him with an unreadable expression. They solemnly hand over a small folded paper containing the results of their very scientific ritual, and Satoshi takes the note with a smug little look like he has just cracked an ancient code. Melfi just stares back, completely confused by his weirdly triumphant attitude about this whole thing, until a horrifyingly simple thought hits Satoshi: could not they have just checked their status screens? Melfi calmly explains that it is just faster to see it for themselves, with their eyes, and then they just summon their freaking stat sheets, floating in midair with all their measurements listed. Our boy's soul just leaves his body, realizing the entire measuring tape ordeal was completely pointless. A quick look at Serena's sheet reveals her title is Slaughtering Dark Knight, a totally normal job. While Melfi's is the even more chill, rampaging berserker princess, which explains a lot. He just stares at the floating menus, muttering that this whole fantasy world is basically just a video game. His eyes then drift back to those slightly alarming titles, maybe rethinking this whole roommate situation. But then he just gives up, deciding to accept that this is his life now, logic optional. The sisters then ask if he cannot just pull up his own status screen like it is the most obvious thing in the world, with Melfi helpfully explaining you just have to press the pot crest to display it. She clarifies it is on the nape of his neck, a little tip they picked up from their evil god apparently, and Satoshi just sweats, admitting he has never once heard of a pot crest in his entire life. He tries it and boom, his own status screen just materializes out of thin air. His titles are Evil God's Kin and Hikikomori, plus he has a destruction beam skill. This sisters just casually confirm that yeah, you just press a spot and it shows up, no big deal. Satoshi's face just screams that this is all way too much for his shut-in brain to handle. Even his clothes are listed as Evil God sweatshirt and boxer briefs, divine loungewear apparently. He just stares at the floating menu, trying to process this new, gamified reality. With all three screens up, Satoshi asks if something seems a little off to them. He then points out a glaring omission on his own stat sheet compared to theirs. Melfi, completely missing the point, just starts reading her stats out loud for everyone. She announces her bust measurement to the entire room, followed by her waist because why would that be private information, and finishes with her hip size, completing this very public audit. Serena then chimes in with her own weight, looking just a little bit smug about it. Our boy just recites her measurements back, clearly comparing the data like a true scientist. This shot then gives us a helpful visual aid for their hip stats, for science. He finally points out the obvious: his own stat sheet does not list any of those asterisk measurements. Satoshi looks genuinely confused, asking why his stats are missing that key info. Melfi just gives him a look that could curdle milk, like he is the dumbest person alive. He just calls her name, completely baffled by her sudden, intense judgment, and then they are suddenly back in their fantasy gear, pledging eternal loyalty to him. Talk about a mood swing. Satoshi is just completely fried from the emotional whiplash of the last 5 minutes. This next morning, a cheerful tune echoes through the apartment, a sign of domestic bliss, which seems to be coming from Satoshi's room where he is still in bed, and our boy is just passed out, completely oblivious to the world around him. Turns out the humming is actually from Melfi, who seems to be in a great mood, because she is in the kitchen, rocking an apron and getting ready to cook, whipping up some fried eggs like a seasoned pro, or at least trying to. But a sudden noise makes her jump, clearly startled by something. And the culprit is none other than the modern marvel known as the microwave. She stares at the magic food box, still not quite trusting this strange new god, when Serena stumbles out of her room looking like she wrestled a bear and lost. Melfi just gives her the most unimpressed, deadpan look imaginable, asking her sister if she is hungover again. The judgment is palpable. Serena just blames the local booze, claiming it is just too dangerously delicious. And Melfi looks absolutely scandalized by this pathetic excuse, before pointing out the can of beer already clutched in Serena's hand. Serena just grins, declaring it is the perfect cure for a hangover, more alcohol obviously. Melfi is not buying this ancient warrior wisdom for a single second, but the slaughtering Dark Knight looks completely confident in her life choices, taking a triumphant sip to start her day the only way she knows how. Melfi just stares back, her face a perfect mask of I am so done with this, and the two sisters have a brief, resigned chat about the state of things, until Serena turns to ask a question about their glorious lord and master, wondering if Satoshi is still passed out in his room, which Melfi confirms he is. Turns out he was up all night for a new game release, a true hikikomori's sacred duty. Serena then eyes a strange pot of food, trying to decipher its earthly origins. Remembering she saw something similar in a YouTube video once before, but the ways of this modern world are still a complete and utter mystery to her. She reflects on their 60 days here, still totally clueless about their god's strange homeland. Melfi then snaps her out of it, standing over her with an air of authority, telling her sister to make herself useful and take out the garbage for once. Serena argues she could just magically obliterate it, but Melfi insists it is a precept. Before lecturing her on the sacred laws of burnable versus plastic trash days, this Dark Knight just gives a smug little smirk, clearly above such mortal rules, but she reluctantly agrees, grabbing the bag while grumbling about the pointlessness of it all. So Serena heads to the door with the trash, ready to perform this mundane task, by which she means opening a literal dark portal on the floor, obviously. She just casually yeets the entire bag into the swirling abyss, problem solved. With the portal closing, she remarks on what a peaceful day it is, zero self-awareness. This scene then cuts to a massive fortified estate somewhere else entirely. A robed attendant bursts in, looking absolutely frantic about something, and promptly prostrates himself in a grand throne room, declaring a major emergency. A very bored-looking king on the throne just asks what all the noise is about. So the messenger starts his report, mentioning the Forest of Calamity. But it is the mention of the evil god that finally gets the king's attention. This other attendants are all freaking out, confirming they detected a magical signature from the god's kin. Leaping from his throne, the king grabs the messenger, questioning how this is even possible, because the attendant insists all remnants were confirmed powerless after the hero's victory. Looking seriously stressed, the king demands to know if the report is certain. And the man sweats buckets, confirming the location is deep inside the dreaded forest. He then reveals the magic used was a dark hole, for garbage disposal. This revelation makes the king completely lose his composure, roaring in disbelief. As an explanation reveals that is the signature spell of the slaughtering Dark Knight. Hearing this, the king just slumps back into his throne, completely overwhelmed. His mages mutter that this knight was supposedly destroyed along with their master, so the king's face darkens, considering the possibility that the evil god has returned. An advisor suggests an equally grim alternative, perhaps a new one has been born. This prompts the king to ask the obvious question, what is the hero's party doing? His attendant nervously explains that they are currently on a vacation. Enraged, the king orders the hero recalled and a subjugation force dispatched at once. Back in the apartment, Melfi has clearly had enough of this lazy god routine, and she finds Satoshi still completely conked out on his futon, a disgrace to all evil deities. So she arms herself with a ladle and pan, the traditional instruments of a morning reckoning, banging them together as she yells for him to get up before his miso soup gets cold. He jolts awake to a lecture on healthy habits, apparently inspired by a YouTuber. But Satoshi just tries to roll over, grumbling that it is still time for sleep. Melfi is not having it, physically ripping the blanket off him while declaring his laziness unacceptable. She seems genuinely shocked that he is even trying to argue back against her righteous cause, and he just asks what an evil god's kin is even doing worrying about being health conscious. This completely short-circuits Melfi, who has never heard that word in her life. Her eyes widening as she asks if he is insulting her, a total communication breakdown. Satoshi, enjoying this way too much, clarifies that no, it is a compliment, obviously. She is just standing there trying to process this very confusing piece of praise, and then she just bursts into tears, demanding to know what he could possibly mean. Our boy immediately realizes he has gone too far, noting that an angry Melfi is terrifying. He tries to explain by breaking down the misheard word, starting with the English word you, but Melfi just stares back, her brain buffering from this terrible language lesson. Then he explains the second part of the word as yasui, which means cheap. She just deadpans that yasui is a person's name, not buying his nonsense for a second. So Satoshi improvises a legend about a charismatic god named Yasui who flies and brings joy. Satoshi spins a tale of a legendary god named Yasui, who is apparently a cool guy in shades. And Melfi, bless her heart, immediately starts worshipping the evil god Yasui with total conviction. So he then bestows this great honor upon her, declaring that she is Yasui, proclaiming with arms outstretched that it means she is as wonderful as this god he invented 10 seconds ago. Our boy then has the audacity to call this whole mess a compliment, looking smug as hell. But Melfi just stares back, her brain clearly rebooting as she tries to understand this praise. Standing on his bed like a true prophet, Satoshi confirms his divine message is correct, and though he is sweating bullets, he doubles down, calling it the highest form of flattery, which is when the light bulb finally goes off and she accepts that yes, this is a compliment. She immediately gets back into a proper kneeling position before her glorious lying master. And overcome with emotion, she pledges to work even harder to live up to this great honor. This escalates into them both chanting "You are Yasui" like a bizarre morning affirmation. He has created a cult. But after all that, when he tries to go back to sleep, Melfi shuts him down immediately, leaving Satoshi to peek out from his blanket, realizing his plan did not actually buy him more nap time. This scene then cuts to a perfect Japanese breakfast spread, looking way too wholesome for this household. And there they are, sitting down for a surprisingly normal meal with Serena already digging in. Satoshi, looking a bit lost in the domesticity of it all, just asks for the soy sauce. And Serena, mid-bite, casually points it out with her chopsticks, not missing a beat. She then hands the bottle over to her lord and master, a true model of helpfulness. As Melfi looks on, genuinely pleased by this moment of peace and thanking him for the assist, Melfi points out his empty bowl, politely asking if her lord would like a refill on miso soup, and Satoshi just blinks, slowly processing that he has already finished his first serving. She then asks if he wants a large portion this time, to which he enthusiastically agrees. But as he eats, he mentions that the soup tastes a little different than usual today. Melfi just beams, proudly explaining that she tried using a new kind of miso paste. And she also bought a wild vegetable set from an online supermarket to experiment with. Handing him the refilled bowl, she asks if he likes it, and he confirms it is delicious. Serena, meanwhile, grumbles that online supermarkets are convenient, a true modern horror, but then notes that these fancy vegetables taste exactly like the weeds that grow around here. This immediately worries Melfi, who admits she is not exactly a master botanist, which gets Satoshi thinking that maybe the local plants could be a free substitute. He points out a specific little plant in his soup, wondering if it has a local twin, and then pops a piece in his mouth deep in culinary contemplation. Looking over at Melfi, he admits this has actually been on his mind for a while now, which gets her totally fired up, declaring that she is also incredibly curious about it. With a determined gulp, she seems to have made a very important decision, but it is Serena who stands up, volunteering to go find the local equivalent herself. She explains that she has appraisal magic, so she can easily check what is edible and what is not. Melfi is immediately moved to tears, shocked that her sister is being so reliable for once. Satoshi, on the other hand, just sits there with a deadpan stare. This is his life now. Satoshi muses that it is way easier to just do something than to actually think about it first, which is when Melfi has a glorious vision of the sunglasses-wearing god Yasui he invented, and our boy just gives a dead-tired ah, remembering the stupid lie he is now stuck with. This three of them just sit in a weirdly pensive silence after their meal, until Satoshi's brain helpfully provides a vision of the sisters in full bunny girl attire, welcoming him home. He is, understandably, having a complete and total meltdown over this development, as his imagination presents one shy bunny and one very confident bunny for his consideration. Sweating profusely, he just tries to figure out how his life even got to this point, before quickly declaring the meal finished, trying to make a tactical retreat from his own thoughts. He gets up and walks away, leaving the two sisters back in their normal clothes at the table. But then Serena calls out to Melfi, her tone suddenly very serious. Melfi just sips her drink, casually asking what is on her mind now, and Serena admits that she has been thinking about something important for a while. Her sister's first guess is that Serena is worried about being useless, a solid assumption really. Serena then uses a new word she learned, Gokutsubushi, to describe a freeloader, which of course Melfi has never heard before, asking what on earth that means. While helping with the dishes, Serena explains she does not know the specifics, just that it is an insult. She then reveals she's been trying to find a way to be more useful to their master, asking Melfi if she has also noticed something different about Satoshi's behavior recently. Melfi's expression darkens as she confirms she has, sensing that something is definitely up. Serena explains that Satoshi has been holed up in his room playing games, only emerging for meals, which has Melfi genuinely worried that their master might be suffering from exhaustion. But Serena just smirks, pretty sure she has figured out the real problem here, and reveals she's been doing some very important research on the internet to find a solution, concluding that to provide true healing, one requires a healthy supply of alcohol. Melfi is completely stunned that such a cure exists, while Serena proudly confirms it. Admitting her research took 3 sleepless nights under a blanket, much to Melfi's irritation. She discovered that Japan has special establishments dedicated to this kind of healing, so Melfi asks if this place, a Kayabakura, is some kind of magical recovery spring, to which Serena explains it is a miraculous location where men and women drink together to find solace. Melfi's face just screams, I am not buying this for a single second. Pulling out her own phone, Melfi declares she has done her own fact-checking on the matter, and promptly shows Serena an image of the required uniform, a very revealing bikini. Melfi is absolutely scandalized, calling the outfit more indecent than the hero party's female warrior, which sends Serena into a panic, realizing she is banned from buying anything online except for booze. In a desperate plea, she begs Melfi to order the outfits for their master's sake right now. And Melfi, looking completely dead inside, agrees, noting same-day delivery will get it there tonight. A little later, Satoshi walks out of his room and asks the only question that makes sense, why bunny girls? Serena, now in full bunny girl regalia, calmly explains it is for the Kayabakura, of course, leaving Satoshi peeking around the corner at 2 costumed demons, wondering what on earth that is. Satoshi is immediately strong-armed by both sisters, who are very enthusiastically welcoming him to their new establishment. And Serena proudly announces the name of their club, the Evil Gods Praise, a 5-star experience surely, before guiding him to the VIP booth, which is just the couch with some Tamazan boxes stacked behind it. Our boy is already in immense spiritual pain, despite their insistence that this is a totally reputable place. He is then plopped onto the couch with Serena getting way too close for comfort, leaving him to just question everything. And the sheer proximity of the situation is clearly overloading his circuits, so he just resigns himself to his fate, a floppy bunny ear covering his face in defeat. Serena, sparkling like a pro, leans in close and asks what their esteemed guest would like to drink, really laying on the hostess charm as she asks if he is enjoying the premium service so far. Completely flustered, Satoshi just stammers out an order for a draft beer, the safest thing he can think of, but Serena immediately screams for a bottle of Dom Perignon, causing him to yell that this is a total ripoff. She then calmly orders some sake for herself because of course she is getting her own drinks on his tab. Melfi then arrives with a tray, playing the part of the dutiful waitress in this bizarre homebrewed club. presenting his Dom Perignon, which is just a martini glass full of what looks like dirt. This, Melfi proudly explains, is land caviar, a local specialty from Akita which does not help at all, and Satoshi just stares at the glass of seeds, wondering how his life spiraled into this exact moment. Serena helpfully clarifies that she could not find actual Dom Perignon on the online supermarket, so this was the next best thing. But she cheerfully adds that they did have the bunny girl outfits in stock. Priorities are clearly in order. Holding his sad little glass of seeds, Satoshi finally asks the million-dollar question, why are they even doing this? And Serena explains it is all because he seemed so tired lately. This is their version of healing. Serena explains she just looked up ways to be useful online, pouring him a drink with expert care. And Satoshi just has to sit there as she leans in, invading his personal space with professional grace, declaring that if you want to heal your master, a Kaibakura is the only way to go, leaving our boy sweating buckets, completely failing to see the therapeutic value here. He finally has to ask what keywords she possibly could have searched to arrive at this conclusion, and she admits she just looked up how to heal a man. The internet is a magical place, is not it? As she continues to pour his drink, she asks what the next step in this sacred ritual is, which is, of course, just a whole lot of alcohol presented with a flourish. Satoshi clutches his head in agony, realizing they have set up an all-you-can-drink special just for him, and Melfi just apologizes, admitting her sister might be getting a little too into her new role. He finally clarifies he was not suffering from exhaustion, just sleep-deprived from playing video games all night, which causes both sisters to just stare, the word game clearly not registering in their demon brains. They immediately get right in his face, demanding to know what this strange new concept is, and Satoshi, looking utterly defeated, just sighs, wondering where to even begin. This answer is on his TV screen, the title menu for Strong Fighter Roman 2 Champion Edition. Melfi and Serena stare at the screen, their expressions completely blank and unimpressed. So Satoshi gets up, deciding it is time for a full-blown presentation on the wonders of gaming, and he points dramatically, explaining that this is the source of all his supposed suffering. Serena, trying to follow along, asks if you control the characters on the screen to fight, while Melfi chimes in, asking if this is some kind of human pastime or play. Melfi, bless her heart, tries to operate the game by literally poking the TV screen. Satoshi has to patiently explain that you use the weird plastic things on the floor, not your fingers. He points to the ancient-looking console and its tangled mess of wires, peak 90s technology. His sisters hold the controllers like they are handling unexploded bombs, utterly baffled. As he tries to hype them up, Melfi gets another glorious vision of the fake god Yasui, and Satoshi dies inside. He insists they will get it if they just try, but their expressions are pure, unadulterated skepticism. Our boy then brings up his own gaming history, mentioning a hardcore MMORPG that is way too advanced for them. It then dawns on him that he is explaining fantasy tropes to literal fantasy demons. The irony is thick. So to ease them in, he figures a simple fighting game is the perfect, non-threatening introduction. Melfi is immediately in a full-blown panic, crying that she cannot pull off a special move. Flustered, Satoshi just sweats, trying to play it cool as she asks him what is wrong. He tries to explain the move by describing a character whose limbs just stretch out indefinitely. His own explanation hangs in the air as he accepts how completely insane this all sounds. His sisters just share a look, communicating a universe of confusion without saying a word. But then a switch flips, Melfi gets a look of fierce determination, while Serena just smirks. Suddenly, Melfi lands a hit and absolutely loses her mind with excitement, stunning her sister. Seeing his plan actually working, Satoshi slips away to prepare some celebratory snacks and drinks. Melfi stares down at her controller, the complex mechanics of button mashing finally starting to click. And just like that, they are both completely hooked, sprawled on the floor like seasoned pros. He returns with the ultimate gamer fuel, a glorious tray of fried chicken, rice balls, and beer. This ultimate gamer fuel is served, a glorious spread of chicken, rice balls, and beer. And just like that, the entire tray is wiped clean, leaving only empty plates and cans. Satoshi, looking completely spent, decides it is time to call it a night, assuming they are tired too, because it has gotten incredibly late while they were all busy button mashing. He heads off to bed, leaving the two bunny girls to their own devices for the evening. Melfi and Serena just share a silent, knowing look as he walks away. And a moment later, the room is empty, the TV is off, and the demons have vanished. Cut to a dark forest where two pairs of fishnet-clad legs are on the move. It is the sisters, still in full bunny gear, walking hand-in-hand through the woods, totally normal. Serena then asks Melfi if she also realized the true purpose of that game, and Melfi, looking just as serious, confirms that she absolutely did. Serena declares that what they thought was play was actually a form of military training. She is completely convinced that Satoshi was trying to teach them something vital, and that he desperately wants them to become stronger for some unknown reason. Putting her new theory to the test, she immediately tries mimicking a special move, unleashing a massive energy blast that lights up the entire forest. Yep, that is a thing she can do. She explains she was able to reproduce the Thunderbolt attack, proving some game moves are real. Though she admits trying to stretch her limbs like Dalsim was, unsurprisingly, a total failure. Melfi, however, casually opens a dark portal, suggesting you could just make an exit for your hand. Serena's mind is blown, realizing they can use portals for long-range attacks. This is gonna get messy. So Melfi asks what Satoshi's grand plan is for them now that they are leveling up. and with a look of pure conviction, Serena declares it is all to get revenge on the heroes. A sentiment punctuated by a giant, monstrous foot stomping the earth into rubble, because the local monster population has apparently volunteered to be their new training dummies. At the same time, a squad of human soldiers is preparing to enter the very same forest, their commander asking his troops if they are ready to march into the Forest of Calamity. One of the soldiers immediately objects, insisting it is too dangerous to go in at night. And he is completely losing it, screaming that only an idiot would enter this cursed forest. But the commander just dismisses him, stating that the danger does not change with the time of day. He glances back, basically asking what difference a little sunlight is gonna make here, just as a massive flash of light erupts from deep within the woods, catching him off guard. A soldier runs up with an urgent report. A huge stampede of monsters is charging right at them, which has the commander immediately screaming for a retreat unless they want to die. This chaos leads him to one terrifying conclusion: the evil god must have been resurrected. And the next day, the bunny girls have vanished, replaced by the sisters in traditional kimonos, who approach Satoshi's gaming rig to announce they are here for the first shrine visit of the year. Our boy, looking completely dead inside, just blankly repeats the phrase back at them. So Melfi explains that according to the internet, today marks the beginning of the new year. Staring into his coffee, Satoshi finally processes it. Oh right, it is New Year's Day. And he crosses his arms, realizing that being a total shut-in made him lose all track of time. Still processing the New Year's reveal, Satoshi blankly asks what month it even is, and Melfi explains that since the evil god's calendar has been officially updated, it is now March of year 1 in the Satoshi era, a system that helps absolutely no one. He is now completely trapped between the two sisters, who assure him they have prepared everything properly. Serena proudly adds that she looked up the correct way to do a shrine visit, including the fancy clothes. Satoshi then points out the one massive hole in their logic: there are no shrines nearby, which is met with two perfectly synchronized, utterly confused head tilts from the demons. Our boy is just baffled by their bafflement, trying to figure out what they are missing. A horrifying realization suddenly dawns on him as he gestures toward himself, and with a trembling finger he asks if he is asterisk supposed to be the shrine. They enthusiastically confirm that yes, the only being they offer prayers to is him. This kid just starts sweating profusely, realizing he is the main attraction for this ritual. Meanwhile, in a completely different kingdom, some very bad news is about to drop. A hooded messenger sprints toward a stern-looking noble, shouting about a major disaster, and the noble just looks tired, asking what fresh hell has broken loose this time. Bowing low, the messenger reports that the army dispatched to the Forest of Calamity has been completely and utterly annihilated, a total wipeout. This news absolutely floors the noble, leaving him completely speechless. He marches forward down the stairs, demanding to know what in the world happened, angrily questioning why those troops were even sent out there to begin with. This messenger is absolutely losing it, demanding to know who ordered such a suicidal charge, and he explains to the noble that the army was wiped out by a simple monster stampede, clarifying that the monsters were fleeing something else and just happened to run them over. This noble just grimly confirms he has already received the report, looking thoroughly unimpressed, and he clutches his head, trying to make sense of this absolute strategic nightmare. He immediately turns to an aide, asking where the hell the hero is in all this mess, but the aide just sweats, explaining the heroes on vacation and travel is a bit congested. This noble snaps that they should just use a teleportation device, a perfectly logical suggestion. Except the aide has to explain that the hero took the one-of-a-kind teleporter with him. With a sigh, the noble mutters that the guy is probably just drunk off his ass somewhere, which has his aide earnestly asking if he should prepare some sobering medicine for him. This noble just roars that he should shove the entire bottle down the hero's throat, adding that at least then he will finally shut up. Clearly these two are not on great terms. Meanwhile, back at Satoshi's place, the New Year's festivities are in full swing, and the sisters have prepared an absolutely massive traditional feast for the occasion. Satoshi, however, looks like his soul has been vacuumed out, realizing he is the main course, which prompts the sisters to ask if he is okay since he looks a little tired. He just admits that being the center of a shrine visit was a bit more intense than he expected. So Melfi decides to show him the proof of their faith, telling him to look outside. And that proof is a giant, horrifying monster peering into his living room, ready to prey. Melfi explains their faith is absolute, while Satoshi just stares at the eyeball-stalk monster praying at his window. Deciding denial is the best policy, our boy tries to ignore the eldritch horror outside and focus on the food. Serena, ever the scholar, then asks for a detailed explanation of this Oschai tradition. So he explains it is a special meal packed in boxes, meant to last while stores are closed for the holiday. He is floored by the massive spread, asking Melfi if she really cooked all of this herself. She sheepishly admits it is just takeout from a restaurant, but vows to try making it next year. But then she proudly presents the ozoni soup, clarifying that she did make this part from scratch. Not to be outdone, Serena lists off her own contributions, curry and sukiyaki, because she has planned for every possible food emergency. Taking a bite, Satoshi sweats, thinking that a dark elf's New Year's meal is an intense experience. And to complete the celebration, Serena unveils an entire lineup of sake she personally selected. Satoshi just gives a look of pure resignation. This is his life now, might as well enjoy it. This whole feast, he points out, is basically just their normal routine anyway. But shrugging it off, he raises his cup to make a toast, deciding to just go with the flow. Melfi's face absolutely lights up, her eyes sparkling as she gets ready for the cheer. The sisters then erupt into a loud Happy New Year, while Satoshi sits there, the calm center of their chaos. Serena sips her drink with the refined grace of a demon noble enjoying the festivities. While Melfi, on the other hand, is just inhaling her machi with the subtlety of a vacuum cleaner. A small smile crosses Satoshi's face as he realizes he never thought he'd be celebrating New Year's again. He takes a quiet sip from his cup, seemingly lost in a moment of genuine peace, until he asks Melfi why she is not drinking, and she just says she is not going to for reasons. Serena pressures him to drink with her, saying it is for good luck in the new year. But Melfi abruptly gets up to leave, and Satoshi has no idea what is going on. Serena then leans in to whisper a dire warning, "Do not let Melfi drink or something terrible will happen." Our boy just sits there trying to process this sudden, very cryptic warning, and he starts sweating, asking what is so bad, does she get violent or start crying? Melfi just turns back with a little tease, and Satoshi's brain immediately short-circuits. But Serena's flashing back to a nightmare scenario where Melfi becomes a whip-wielding interrogator from hell. Melfi then reappears with a high-alcohol canned drink, insisting one little can will not hurt. So Satoshi takes a sip and is shocked at how easy it is to drink, a classic rookie mistake. And just like that, Melfi is completely plastered, turning their home into a torture chamber. Cut to a different scene entirely, a massive building is engulfed in flames. And amidst the ruins, a young hooded girl is kneeling in prayer, looking absolutely terrified. She looks up in despair, screaming out and asking why this is happening to her. As a figure in a black tracksuit stands over her, clearly the cause of all this destruction. It is Melfi who gives the girl a cold, emotionless look over her shoulder. She grimly explains that she found out something she needed to know, and that this destruction is simply the will of her god, Satoshi. Melfi then gives the crying girl a simple choice: obedience or death, pick one. Meanwhile, a messenger bursts into a throne room screaming about an emergency, and the noble from before just looks exhausted, asking what the evil god has done now. This messenger clarifies that it was not their asterisk kingdom that attacked the evil god's forces, and the noble just smirks, confirming his country had absolutely nothing to do with it. Instead, the messenger explains the evil god's army was the one on the offensive against another nation, revealing the victim was the Van Ladane theocracy, a completely separate power. This news completely floors the noble, leaving him sweating and utterly baffled. This name Van Ladane rings a bell, but he cannot quite place where he has heard it before. One of his advisors clarifies it is a small religious state on the far western continent. He then questions the evil god's motive, since they have zero diplomatic ties to that place. This unexpected strategic move has him looking grim, trying to make sense of it all. After a moment, he tells the messenger to get on with the rest of the disastrous report. This messenger drops the real bombshell: Van Ladane surrendered and declared itself an evil god nation. His lordship just scowls, muttering about that damn evil god causing trouble again. An aide speculates that maybe the plan is to build up strength in a distant land first. This noble listens, acknowledging that the evil god's threat is a bad thing no matter how far away. For now, though, he just dismisses it with a whatever, not his immediate problem. He stands, ordering his men not to slack off on intelligence gathering under any circumstances. Then he gets to the real question: what in the world is the hero's party doing? This aide looks absolutely terrified, asking what he means by that question, and the answer is that they have disembarked, and are now refusing to leave a hot spring resort. This news sends the noble into a full-blown migraine. His trump card is on a spa day. This noble is still seething, wondering how a bunch of vacationing idiots could ever be called heroes. Meanwhile, back at Satoshi's place, the front door slides open with a clatter. And Serena walks in, announcing she is home with a look of pure exhaustion. Melfi immediately pops up to report that she followed Satoshi's orders and completely destroyed Van Ladane. Her sister just leans against the wall, asking what in the fresh hell she is talking about. Melfi looks genuinely confused by the question, since she thought she was being helpful. Unfazed, Serena strikes a pose, holding a can of booze and looking ready to unwind. Melfi points to the can, asking what she has got there. It is a Neo cup of sake. Serena proudly explains it is a little reward for herself, just like a hardworking office lady. But Melfi is trying to steer the conversation back to the international incident she just caused. She nervously clarifies that the word was not Van Ladane, it was Valentine. Serena just freezes, the gears in her brain grinding to a halt as she processes this. Melfi frantically insists again, trying to correct the catastrophic nation-ending typo. She grabs her sister, trying to stop her from spiraling before this gets any worse. Too late, Serena explodes, screaming that Melfi was the one who heard Satoshi and gave the order. She is absolutely furious, warning that if this is some kind of trick, there will be sisterly hell to pay. Melfi just shoves a phone in her face, telling her to shut up and look at the screen. Annoyed, Serena glances down to see what could possibly be so important. It is a picture of the hero, buried under a mountain of gifts and bragging about his massive haul. His party member is lecturing him that handmade gifts are better, a classic Valentine's Day argument. Serena stares at the phone, which is showing a manga panel of some very anatomically specific chocolates, and the character in the next panel is vowing not to lose this gift-giving war, a truly noble cause. Both sisters just look down at the screen, their brains completely failing to process this human custom. Turning to Melfi, Serena asks for an explanation because none of this makes any sense to her. Melfi clarifies this is from a manga about Valentine, which is now their primary intelligence source. Her research suggests a god's status is determined by the number of offerings they receive from followers. Serena's mind immediately jumps to traditional offerings, like maybe a severed goat head or something. Melfi has to quickly shut that idea down before they go shopping for livestock. So Serena pivots, suggesting sake must be the proper offering, projecting just a little bit, perhaps. Melfi argues that while she'd like sake, Satoshi would obviously be overjoyed, which Serena flatly denies. With a smug look, Melfi counters that the correct offering is sweets, which is coincidentally Serena's favorite. This immediately devolves into a full-on brawl over whether their god prefers booze or sugar. Completely exhausted from the debate, Serena finally asks what they are actually supposed to give him. Melfi shoves the phone in her face again, pointing out the manga calls for a specific gift, choco. Serena just stares blankly, trying to sound out this mysterious and powerful word. Melfi then recalls seeing some fancy, black, lumpy delicacy online that looks perfect for an evil god. A look of dawning horror crosses Serena's face as she starts connecting the dots. She realizes Satoshi is upset because he is losing the Valentines, offering war to other, more popular gods. Melfi can only clutch her phone and nervously agree that is probably what is happening. And Serena just collapses to her knees, absolutely crushed by the shame of failing their god so spectacularly. Melfi looks down at her sister, who is completely prostrated in shame over this massive failure. But then a new thought strikes Serena and she looks up with a sudden glimmer of hope. Because even if it was a mistake, Van Ladane is now officially a nation that worships their god. Melfi's eyes gleam with a brilliant, terrible idea. Just make the entire country offer up choco. Her sister just stares, asking what kind of fresh hell she is cooking up now. This little one then points out the logistical nightmare of sourcing chocolate for an entire population. And just like that, Serena is back on the floor, convinced that everything is ruined forever. Melfi looks back, telling her it is way too early to give up on their divine mission. Peeking out from her corner of despair, Serena asks what she could possibly mean. She then gets a determined look, declaring it is not about quantity but quality. Handmade gifts hold true value. Melfi processes this new intel, realizing that is probably what the manga was trying to teach them. Serena turns to her with a serious expression, ready to address the real issue, and Melfi admits they do not even know what this mysterious choco stuff actually is. Her sister gets an intense look, shouting that Melfi has finally grasped the true crisis. With a silent understanding passing between them, the two turn, now united in a single purpose. Melfi slides open a closet door, saying she had a feeling it would come to this, revealing an absolutely insane stockpile of boxes, proudly announcing she is already prepared for this. Serena's jaw just drops to the floor, staring in total awe at the mountain of choco. Melfi stands there, confirming that this is indeed chocolate, like a general unveiling her secret weapon. A hand then reaches out, grabbing a bar of what is very clearly just store-bought chocolate. Melfi holds up the chocolate bar, declaring they must first analyze this sacred offering. So she takes a big bite for purely scientific reasons, of course. Just a little taste to understand its complex, divine properties, you see, and her entire world immediately shatters on contact. Melfi is having a full-blown religious experience over how sweet it is, while Serena just finds it cloying. Now she's just inhaling the bar, insisting it is a thorough taste test and definitely not an addiction. Getting down to business, Serena grabs a bar of her own, and she asks what the deal is with this handmade requirement from the manga. Melfi just glares back, too busy with her newfound obsession to give a coherent answer. They stand before their mountain of store-bought goods, a silent monument to their total failure. But Melfi, chocolate smeared on her face, insists she has already researched the solution. Her grand plan beginning with the highly advanced technique of melting chocolate in a bowl. Next, the molten substance is poured into a variety of cutesy, non-threatening shapes, and Serena watches, completely unconvinced, as Melfi prepares the tray for the fridge. Her sister is sweating, asking if that is seriously all there is to it, but Melfi tells her to trust the process. With a smug grin, Melfi reveals she is already prepared for the next phase of this complex operation. Serena absolutely loses it, screaming that all her research was just melting it and reforming it. Melfi calmly counters that Serena cannot handle sweets anyway, so she is adding pure sugar to help. Her sister argues that just changing the shape does not actually improve the asterisk quality of the offering. In response, Melfi shoves the manga in her face, pointing to the anatomically correct chocolates as proof of concept. Serena asks if she is seriously talking about chocolate, like it is some ancient, forbidden word, and Melfi confirms it but insists the asterisk shape is the key to a proper offering, not the substance. She gets this super intense look, explaining that without asterisk this specific shape, they cannot reach divine greatness. And Serena finally gets it, this is how they will prove they are better than the other gods. Melfi then points to the manga again, clarifying the specific offering is Oppai Choco. Her sister just stares blankly, having absolutely no clue what an Oppai is. Melfi's research then conjures an image of women being coated in chocolate for testing purposes, of course. Her explanation is that since they symbolize a bountiful harvest, Serena needs to get undressed immediately. This leap in logic is so wild that Serena can only respond with a confused huh. This older sister then completely freaks out, demanding to know why she is the one being volunteered for this. Melfi's airtight reasoning is that Serena's chest is bigger, making her the superior offering mold. Serena tries to talk her down, but Melfi declares the time for discussion is over. This is for Satoshi. With a terrifying glint in her eye, she announces this is the sacred duty of an evil god servant. Next thing you know, Serena is tied up on the floor because that is a totally normal step in baking. Lying there defeated, she realizes this is punishment for trying to escape her fate. Melfi then hoists her up over a bowl, while Serena complains that being restrained is way too extra. Outside, steam is pouring from the house as text describes enduring hardship. This is getting intense. Inside, the chocolate is being whisked with the fury of 1,000 suns, ready for the ritual. Defeated, Serena agrees to do it but points out she is probably going to get burned. Melfi just turns away, ignoring her sister's pleas as she prepares for the final, horrifying step. Melfi calmly tells her sister not to worry, holding a spatula like a surgeon about to operate. She reassures her that the women in her research were totally fine with this procedure, probably. With dead, soulless eyes, Melfi insists the boiling pot of chocolate is not even that hot. Outside the house, a symphony of blood-curdling screams suggests the baking is going great, and our boy Satoshi is just trying to figure out what fresh new hell is unfolding in his kitchen. He walks in to find Melfi performing a full-on doja, asking what on earth is going on. She explains this is all for Valentine, but they need to learn heat resistance magic first. Serena, looking like she just survived a war, mutters that Valentine's Day came way too soon for them. Satoshi just deadpans that Valentine's Day is literally next month, you absolute geniuses. This sisters, now composed, formally introduce themselves and pledge their undying loyalty to him. Our boy is just sweating bullets, completely lost as to what prompted this cult-like ceremony. Meanwhile, at a fancy-looking castle, a completely different plot is brewing. A group of robed figures marches purposefully through the halls, clearly on a mission. They stop dead in their tracks, shocked to see who is standing in their way. It is the strongest female warrior, Katrin, whose battle armor is strategically minimalist, let us say. Next up is the 30-year-old Dawn Witch Sunny, who gets immediately roasted for her unoriginal name. Then there is the battle monk Bolton, who has already got a nosebleed for some reason. Stay focused, dude. And finally, the hero from another world, Otori, a silent giant who never shows his face. This onlookers whisper that there must be a truly horrifying face hiding under that helmet. And there they are, the full heroes party, ready to cause some trouble for our guys. This heroes party stands before the king, looking less like saviors and more like they are here for jury duty. And an old advisor immediately starts chewing them out for being late, a truly bold opening move. Katrin just glares back with an expression that could curdle milk from 100 paces away. This advisor immediately starts sweating, begging her to please dial down the murder hobo energy. This king tries to play it cool, while his advisor insists he was just super excited to see them. And Sunny the mage is hiding behind her staff, whining about how scary Katrin is being. This whole party just erupts into chaos, with Katrin calling Sunny an old hag, teamwork at its finest. A royal official just sighs, mentioning that the king is also having a really bad day. Tired of the drama, the king tells them to shut up so they can finally get down to business. He explains that he had a very specific, very urgent reason for dragging them all back here. Revealing the big news, the evil god might have been resurrected, which finally gets their attention. Seeing their shocked silence, the king nervously asks what is wrong with that little bombshell. But the party just dismisses it out of hand, with Katrin flatly stating there is no way that happened. This king then lays out the proof, an entire army wiped out and a nation conquered in the evil god's name. Bolton the monk finally chimes in, suggesting they should probably investigate, just in case. With a desperate look, the king asks if that means they will actually take the quest. Katrin and Sunny are already complaining about how much of a massive hassle this is going to be, while the silent hero Otori just lets his single, ominous helmetai do all the talking. Back at a quiet, unassuming house in the woods, a different kind of chaos is brewing. And Satoshi peeks out, wearing an expression that says he is 100% done with this divine comedy. Satoshi peeks in, finding Melfi ordering her sister to lie because it is April 1st. Serena is just completely lost, asking why on earth she would ever need to do that. Melfi explains it is a sacred day where lying is not just allowed, it is required. Her sister questions the divine wisdom of this, but Melfi insists it is beyond mortal comprehension. Getting super intense, she commands Serena to just keep lying all day. It is a holy decree now. Meanwhile, Satoshi overhears this, realizing lying might just get them smited by their own god. With a sly little grin, he decides to check his phone for some quick research. He is absolutely loving this, realizing they are about to make another hilarious mistake. Our boy turns away, feigning indifference while secretly dying to see what nonsense they cook up. But then Serena calls out to Melfi, looking at her own phone with a puzzled expression. This screen reveals the horrible truth. It is actually April 3rd, they missed it by 2 days. Both sisters just freeze, absorbing the full weight of their latest spectacular failure. They stare at the screen, realizing they have to wait a whole year for their next shot at whatever this was. Later, they approach Satoshi at his desk while he is just trying to chill with some headphones on. He looks up from his work, completely unfazed by his 2 divine servants looming over him. Standing there like they're about to give a corporate presentation, he asks what they want. Melfi asks if he is curious about their earlier conversation, trying to play it cool. She then asks what kind of lie he was expecting from them, trying to salvage the situation. Satoshi just calmly takes off his headphones, his expression giving away absolutely nothing. Melfi then proudly announces their lie. They have captured a high school girl for him. Satoshi just stares, his face screaming, "You have got to be kidding me right now." And he calmly sets his headphones down, deciding to lean into this absolute train wreck. So they explain their lie. She is a wild high school girl who just emerged from the forest, and our boy just deadpans. A wild high school girl, because that is a totally normal thing. Serena then clarifies she saw girls on YouTube wearing this, so that is their entire basis for this. She tries to sound profound, saying you just have to make a judgment call with the unknown. And the incomprehensible thing the girl said was just asking to use the bathroom. Melfi connects the dots, saying that is why the girl was pale, totally not because she was kidnapped. The sisters decide to fully commit to this lie, with Melfi ready to go all in. So Satoshi, arms crossed, decides to play along, telling them JKS are Japan's most treasured species. They are absolutely floored, more treasured than him. And he just confirms it without blinking. He then claims his research shows 1 JK is worth 20 adult men, and Serena loses it. Now they are both panicking, realizing the gravity of their crime, while Satoshi just enjoys the show. Suddenly they are in full formal gear, begging him to urgently inspect their report. And they immediately grab him, insisting this is an emergency and he has to come now. But Satoshi is just smiling, telling them to calm down while clearly loving every second of this. The sisters present their offering with the reverence of a religious ceremony, opening a door for him, and he peeks in, completely unimpressed by this dark elf-style April Fool's prank. Because there she is, an actual high school girl tied up and lying on the floor, who is trembling and clearly terrified because this prank just crossed a very serious line. This house is surrounded by trees, looking like a secluded hideout. A sign clearly marks the door as WC, which is just a bathroom. This girl, who looks like a student, is all smiles, talking about being the strongest in class. Then bam, she is on the floor doing a doja, apologizing profusely to Satoshi. Satoshi looks utterly confused, like he just walked into a bizarre cult meeting. She is crying now, thanking him for being born, which is a whole mood. Someone offers Satoshi a box of chocolates and some tea, like a fancy tea ceremony. This girl asks if he is being flirted with, which is a total non sequitur. Satoshi just laughs it off, calling it a classic, probably thinking, oh, here we go. She then asks if this chocolate is from their world, which is a weird question. Melfi, the elf girl, is presenting a mountain of gifts, saying, help yourself. This girl is shocked, asking if they are really going to do this then. Suddenly, an alien appears next to Satoshi, who looks completely freaked out. This girl exclaims that this means they have been reincarnated into this world. Satoshi just stares, his expression saying, I cannot believe this is happening. He is asked if it is okay to go to Izumi, which is a strange request. This girl asks Satoshi when he came here and if he noticed them. She then asks if it was a big deal, with a dramatic flair. She mentions that she made friends quickly, which is kind of sweet. Satoshi just deadpans. Why is not it simple? Now free, the high school girl tells Satoshi that the whole kidnapping thing was, a surprise, and she cheerfully clarifies she was just looking for a bathroom when she found their house. Satoshi is left speechless while the elf sisters finally realize their wild beast just had to pee. Meanwhile, Katrin from the heroes' party is wondering where on earth their friend Izumi has gone. This rest of the party is not too worried, figuring their friend will be fine, she is a hero after all.